Lucas was confident. He was healthy and would live to 100. But one day, just before his run, the world swayed before his eyes. A week later, the doctor uttered something terrifying. "Your arteries are in critical condition. You have 2 years." How could this be? Why was he, someone who had always taken care of himself, suddenly on the brink of a heart attack? What he discovered next shattered everything he had ever believed. Lucas Hill had always been proud of his health. He wasn't a fan of extremes. He didn't exhaust himself with diets, didn't follow trendy wellness practices, but also didn't indulge in junk food or alcohol. He maintained a balanced lifestyle, ran every morning, mostly ate healthy foods, got 6 to 7 hours of sleep a night, and avoided stress whenever possible. At 55, he felt better than most of his peers. When his friends complained about joint pain, chronic fatigue, or blood pressure spikes, he would just shrug with a slight smirk. "You probably just don't take care of yourselves, guys. It's all about habits," he would say whenever the topic of health came up. Lucas was convinced he would live at least 90 years, maybe even 100. Longevity ran in his family. His mother had passed away at 102, and his grandfather had lived to 98, staying sharp until his final days. But one morning, something changed. Another morning run along his usual route was supposed to go as always. Lucas woke up at 5:30 a.m., drank a glass of water with lemon, laced up his running shoes, and stepped outside. The air was fresh and cool. The sun had just begun to rise. He took a deep breath and took his first step. And suddenly, the world tilted. A sudden weakness in his legs, as if his muscles had stopped obeying him. Dark spots swam before his eyes. He grabbed the wall of his house to keep from falling and closed his eyes. Probably just tired, he thought. A minute later, the dizziness passed. He took a deep breath, straightened up, and kept walking. His body was working, but an unsettling feeling had settled in his mind. "Time for a checkup," he muttered under his breath. Lucas wasn't paranoid, but he decided to visit a doctor, just for peace of mind. 2 days later, he was sitting in the doctor's office. It was an experienced cardiologist, Dr. Robertson, a man in his 60s, with graying temples and a calm, confident voice. When Lucas walked in, the doctor didn't smile or greet him in his usual friendly manner. Instead, he looked at him intently, took off his glasses, and placed them on the table. "Lucas," he began, rubbing the bridge of his nose, "I have bad news." Lucas leaned slightly forward, but his face still held a faint smirk. "Seriously? Doc, don't scare me. I'm an athlete. I run every day. Why should I be worried?" The doctor sighed and slid a sheet of test results toward him. "Your cholesterol levels are catastrophically high. I checked multiple times. The numbers are alarming. If you don't change your lifestyle, you have a high chance of having a heart attack within the next 2 years." For a few seconds, silence filled the office. Lucas looked at him, then at the paper. "Cholesterol?" he repeated, frowning. "That must be a mistake. I eat healthy food. No fast food, no sugary sodas." The doctor shook his head. "I understand what you're thinking, but I'm not talking about external health. I'm talking about the internal state of your arteries. Your arteries are in critical condition." Lucas leaned back in his chair, chuckling in disbelief. "Well, maybe I should add more fish or avocado to my diet, but come on. There's no history of heart disease in my family. My grandfather was almost 100 when he passed, and my mother lived to 102. And that's great, but unfortunately it's not enough. Your body is literally wearing out, and if you don't take urgent measures, you could face irreversible consequences." "This is a joke, right?" Lucas let out a nervous laugh, but his smile quickly faded when he saw that the doctor wasn't even trying to change his tone. "I wish it were," Robertson replied. At that moment, for the first time in a long time, Lucas felt fear. Something in his body wasn't working as it should. Lucas walked out of the clinic, slowly descending the steps, yet feeling as if he wasn't touching the ground. it was as if he had stepped into a parallel reality where all his knowledge, experience, and efforts had suddenly lost their value. He knew the body could fail. He knew illnesses could strike unexpectedly. But not him. Not him. His head was buzzing, the doctor's words echoing in his ears. Your arteries are in critical condition. If nothing changes, a heart attack within the next 2 years is inevitable. That very morning, he had been certain that his body was his greatest ally. And now? Now he felt betrayed, as if he had played by the rules his whole life, only to end up the loser. Lucas got into his car, started the engine, but didn't move. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned white. No, he thought. This is a mistake. Whatever this was, it certainly wasn't fair. A week later, still unable to accept the diagnosis, he scheduled an appointment with another cardiologist. Maybe Dr. Robertson had been wrong? Maybe the lab had mixed up the test results. I want to be re-examined, Lucas stated as soon as he stepped into the second specialist's office. The doctor, a thin man in a white coat, nodded and ordered a full examination. Lucas had his blood tested, underwent an ultrasound of his blood vessels, and did an ECG. For several days he waited anxiously, running through possible explanations in his mind. Dr. Robertson was probably just being overly cautious. Maybe my levels are slightly above normal, but that's not fatal, right? It can be fixed. But when he found himself back in the doctor's office, his hopes were shattered. Lucas, I understand that this is unexpected for you, but your arteries are in terrible condition. He didn't even let him finish. He got up, walked out, and slammed the door behind him. This wasn't a mistake. This was the truth. When Lucas returned home, a storm of emotions raged inside him. He walked through the door without feeling the floor beneath his feet. Betrayal. That was the word spinning in his mind. Betrayal by his own body. He had always considered himself strong and healthy. He watched his diet, ran regularly, avoided bad habits, and maintained his weight. He did everything doctors and scientists preached. And yet, here he was, at risk. While his best friend James, who devoured burgers and fries and washed them down with cold beer, felt absolutely fine. Where is the justice in that? Lucas thought bitterly. Dozens of memories flashed through his mind. There they were, sitting at a bar, Lucas ordering mineral water while James laughed and raised a glass of beer. Oh, come on, Lou, relax, James chuckled. Life's short, why stress? Yeah, right, James. If anyone was supposed to end up with a heart attack, it was you. Lucas clenched his fists, feeling a wave of anger rising inside him. Then what's the point? Why is it that one person who leads a healthy lifestyle ends up on the brink of death, while another, who stuffs himself with junk food, lives carefree? He had never felt so powerless. All his life, he had believed that health was a choice, that if you took care of yourself, you could avoid illness. But maybe he had been wrong. Lucas couldn't just accept it. After 2 consecutive diagnoses, after the shock and the feeling of betrayal by his own body, he knew he had to get to the bottom of this. Something didn't add up. He had always believed that sports, proper nutrition, and discipline were the keys to longevity. If he was wrong, then somewhere out there had to be information that explained why. Lucas opened his laptop, pulled up several health articles, and started reading. The first source stated that genetics determine up to 30% of life expectancy. All right, no issues there. That means the problem lies elsewhere. He dug deeper. Nutrition. Scientific studies varied. Some claimed fats were harmful. Others argued that they were essential for vascular health. Damn it! Lucas had always been proud of following a low-fat diet. He had cut out butter, rarely ate nuts, and avoided red meat. He believed this was the right approach. but research showed that healthy fats were critically important. Without them, blood vessels lost their elasticity. So, I was actually contributing to the deterioration of my own arteries? Lucas clenched his fists. He kept researching. Physical activity. He ran every day. But on a medical forum, he found a cardiologist's comment that completely changed his perspective on exercise. Running strengthens the heart, but it doesn't build muscle or prevent bone loss. Strength training is crucial for longevity. Lucas blinked. He had never done strength training. Never. He had always thought that a 5-7-kilometer run was the perfect workout. He believed the gym was for bodybuilders and young guys trying to bulk up. But it turned out that muscle was a shield against aging. And without strength training, the body lost its ability to regenerate faster. Lucas sank deeper into his chair, feeling an uncomfortable realization creeping in. Social connections. People who are socially active have lower levels of inflammation and maintain better health for longer. Lucas thought back to how, in recent years, he had drifted away from his friends. They used to meet every Friday, have board game nights, talk about work, family, and travel. Then, suddenly, he was too busy, had no time, needed to go to bed early for his morning run. Now he could go weeks without speaking to anyone except his coworkers. Damn, this is against me too? Stress. Stress damages the body at the cellular level. Cortisol accelerates vascular aging, triggers blood pressure spikes, and impairs brain function. Lucas smirked. What stress? He had a job he had been doing for 15 years. He was used to it, knew how everything worked. But if he thought about it, constant deadlines, tense meetings, the fear of losing a contract, wasn't that stress? He had worked like this for years, thinking that as long as he wasn't having panic attacks, he was fine. Sleep. People who sleep less than 7 hours a night increase their risk of heart disease by 40%. Lucas shifted in his chair. He had never slept more than 6 hours. He always believed you just need to train your body to function on less sleep. But it turned out that even if the body adapted to sleep deprivation, the blood vessels never forgave it. Health monitoring. Regular checkups are the key to a long life. Lucas had always assumed he was fine. He was sure of it. Why get checked if he was already running and eating vegetables? He had never done routine tests, never checked his cholesterol, never thought about his vascular health. Because I thought it didn't apply to me. Mental flexibility. People who are open to change and adaptation live longer. Rigidity in beliefs is one of the causes of declining health. Lucas froze. He had always believed he was right. He never trusted new studies, relying instead on knowledge he considered undeniable. He never allowed himself to question his system because the system had always worked. But now, it was killing him. Lucas suddenly slammed his laptop shut and shot to his feet. What the hell? He paced the room, fists clenched. Doctors never told him the full truth. They made him believe it was all about genetics and running. But the truth was deeper. He had put himself in this position. Unintentionally, but systematically, he had created the conditions for his own illness. He believed he was doing everything right, when in reality, he had been ignoring the key principles of longevity. Lucas exhaled sharply, rage rising from within, anger at the doctors, who never told him everything up front, anger at the health industry, which had spent decades convincing him that running and eating vegetables were enough, anger at himself, because he had shut his eyes to the facts and never bothered to dig deeper. Lucas clenched his jaw. All right then. If I put myself in this corner, I'll be the one to get myself out of it. Lucas closed his laptop, took a deep breath, and exhaled. He was no longer the man who blindly believed he was doing everything right. Now he knew that he had been following the wrong path his entire life, and that only he could change his fate. He looked in the mirror. Staring back at him was a man who had been given a second chance at a long life, and he wasn't going to waste it. The first thing Lucas changed was his nutrition. He no longer avoided healthy fats. His diet now included avocado, nuts, salmon, olive oil, all the things he had once feared. He reevaluated his approach to protein. His meals now featured eggs, turkey, cottage cheese, seafood, sources of strength that kept his muscles fueled. He cut out refined carbohydrates, which he had once used to replace fats. No more low-calorie snacks. Now he ate real, nourishing food, with awareness and intention. Within weeks, he noticed a difference. He felt full for longer, his fatigue disappeared, and his mood improved. But this was only the beginning. Lucas still loved running, but now he no longer saw it as a cure-all. He started with yoga, skeptically at first, but with an understanding that flexibility and breathwork were key to longevity. For the first time, he felt how stiff his spine was, how tense his muscles had become, how his body had adapted to a single rhythm, but had no idea what it meant to truly relax. Yoga gave him something he didn't even know he was missing: mindfulness in movement, breath control, and the ability to truly feel his body. But the most important change? He started strength training. At first it was tough. He had always thought weights were for young guys. But when he saw the results, he understood why it was so crucial. His posture improved, his muscles became stronger, his endurance skyrocketed. Now he wasn't just running. Now he was rebuilding himself from the ground up. Lucas realized how lonely he had been. So he started reconnecting. First, calls to old friends. Then, dinners, gatherings, walks. Every week he made time for socializing. No more excuses about work, training, or exhaustion. And then he joined a travel club. Every month, a new trip, mountains, oceans, valleys, city hikes, new people, new experiences. He wasn't just existing anymore. He was living. But the biggest decision? He made it for himself. He quit his job. He walked away from the stress, the endless rat race, the career that had been poisoning him. Now he was teaching people how to take care of themselves. Lucas became a wellness coach. He shared what he had learned, helping others avoid his mistakes. And for the first time in years, he felt like he was doing something truly meaningful. On this day, he walked into the clinic with confidence. He wasn't afraid of the tests. He wasn't anxious about the results. He knew he had done everything right. The doctor sat across from him, reviewing the data. Lucas watched as he shook his head in disbelief. "This is incredible," the doctor said. "Your numbers are like those of a 40-year-old. Lucas smiled. He hadn't just survived. He had taken control of his life, and now, he knew, he would live to 100.